The life-changing advice Queen Mary received before her royal wedding to Denmark's future king. It was a moment that captured the hearts of millions around the world. On May 14, 2004, an ordinary woman from Tasmania stepped into a cathedral in Copenhagen and emerged as the future Queen of Denmark. Mary Elizabeth Donaldson, a marketing executive with a modest background, married Crown Prince Frederik, and her life was forever transformed. But behind the fairy tale and the flawless smile was a woman navigating intense public scrutiny, cultural adaptation, and the colossal expectations of becoming a royal consort. And just before she walked down that historic aisle, before the orchestra played, before the white veil was lifted, before Denmark welcomed its new royal, a single piece of advice was given to her. A message that would shape her every move for the next 2 decades. A piece of wisdom that still echoes through her reign today. This is not just a love story. It is a story of transformation, diplomacy, endurance, and self-discovery. It's about the making of a queen. In the weeks leading up to her wedding, Mary Donaldson was no longer just a bride. She was under an international microscope. Danish newspapers detailed everything from her accent to her wardrobe. Royal commentators questioned whether an Australian commoner could truly understand the expectations of life within an ancient European monarchy. She had already begun intense Danish language lessons, etiquette training, and sessions in court protocol. But no tutor could prepare her for the emotional and psychological pressure of becoming a public figure overnight. Behind palace walls, she was said to have wrestled with fear and uncertainty, feeling torn between the life she knew and the life she was about to inherit. Friends from Australia reported how Mary had confided in them, expressing nerves about whether she could measure up to Denmark's expectations. And then, the advice came. According to insiders close to the Danish royal court, just days before the wedding, Mary received a powerful piece of advice from Queen Margrethe II herself, Denmark's reigning monarch and Frederik's mother. The Queen, known for her stern yet motherly demeanor, reportedly took Mary aside and gave her words that have since been described as transformational. "You must never try to be perfect," Queen Margrethe is said to have told her future daughter-in-law. "Only try to be genuine. The people will forgive your mistakes if they believe your heart is true." These words, simple yet profound, would go on to define Queen Mary's reign. Queen Mary, now known for her grace, composure, and charisma, has repeatedly returned to the idea of authenticity in her public speeches and personal statements. She has acknowledged how overwhelming the early days of royal life were, especially navigating a new culture and mastering a new language in front of millions. The Queen's advice allowed her to breathe. It gave her permission to be human. While her public image would be polished, she didn't need to become a porcelain doll. She could remain Mary, the woman who once lived in a Sydney flat with roommates, who once waited tables to support her education, who once thought royalty was something that existed only in books and television. As Crown Princess, Mary embarked on a journey of reinvention, but not erasure. She didn't try to shed her past, she learned to weave it into the fabric of her new life. She embraced Denmark, its traditions, its people, and its monarchy, but she also brought with her a fierce independence and compassion that reflected her Australian roots. Over the next 21 years, Mary didn't just meet the expectations placed upon her, she reshaped them. From her work in women's rights and domestic violence, awareness to her powerful speeches on mental health, motherhood, and sustainability, she has carved a unique role for herself not as a decorative royal, but as a working queen with purpose. It wasn't always easy. There were stumbles, language errors caught on camera, awkward missteps in protocol, criticism from conservative royalists, and yet, Mary endured. She listened, she adapted, but most importantly, she remained grounded in the very words Queen Margrethe had given her. In her first solo interview as Crown Princess, Mary remarked, "The expectations are enormous, but I try every day to be myself." And it showed. Slowly, she won the hearts of the Danish people, not by perfection, but by persistence and sincerity. Now, as Queen Mary stands beside King Frederik X, her transformation feels complete, but her journey is far from over. She is seen as one of Europe's most beloved and respected royal figures, often compared to the likes of Queen Letizia of Spain and Queen Maxima of the Netherlands. But what sets Mary apart is the emotional connection she maintains with her people. That authenticity. Today, 21 years after her wedding, the Queen still reflects that same quiet strength she was advised to embrace. She is not Danish by birth, but by heart, one Danish journalist wrote in a recent column celebrating her rise. Ironically, Queen Margrethe II's own advice may turn out to be one of her most powerful legacies, not just for Queen Mary, but for future generations of royals. In an age where monarchies are increasingly scrutinized, the advice to lead with authenticity has become more relevant than ever. Mary has passed on this sentiment to her own children, especially Princess Isabella, who now steps into a more public role as she comes of age. The next generation of Danish royals are being taught not to be perfect, but to be real. To serve not with rigidity, but with heart. Mary and Frederik's love story wasn't supposed to happen. A chance meeting in a Sydney pub during the 2000 Olympics. A long-distance romance that defied protocol. But it did happen. And 21 years later, that story has become the foundation of a new royal era in Denmark. Their wedding day was filled with symbolism. Mary's veil held in place by the diamond tiara gifted by Queen Margrethe. The Australian gum leaves in her bouquet. Her eyes, filled with both nerves and love, as she walked into her new life. But the most powerful moment of that day may have happened off camera, in the quiet chamber where she received a few simple words that would become her guiding light. As the years roll on, Queen Mary will undoubtedly be remembered as one of Denmark's most impactful queens. She did not ascend the throne by birthright, but by belief, her belief in love, duty, and the power of being true to oneself. Her reign has become a masterclass in modern monarchy, dignified, deliberate, and deeply human. The hidden words that built a queen, the untold story of Queen Mary's royal transformation after one piece of life-changing advice. There are moments in history that slip quietly into the tapestry of royal life, unrecorded, undocumented, but unimaginably important. One such moment took place behind the grand doors of Amalienborg Palace, just days before May 14, 2004, the day Mary Elizabeth Donaldson would become Crown Princess of Denmark. At the time, she was a radiant but nervous bride-to-be, standing on the edge of a new identity. What she didn't expect was a few simple words that would stay with her forever, words that wouldn't just carry her through her wedding day, but through 2 decades of royal duty. This is the story of that advice, and how it shaped not just a woman, but a queen. From Tasmania to the royal court, a journey few thought possible. In 2000, at a Sydney pub during the Olympics, Mary Donaldson, then a marketing executive, met Crown Prince Frederik of Denmark. The odds that their brief encounter would evolve into a fairy tale marriage seemed astronomically small. But against the backdrop of royal protocol, distance, and cultural difference, love bloomed. She had no royal blood, no noble titles, and no diplomatic ties to Europe, said Danish royal historian Mette Blom in a 2019 interview. And yet, there was something undeniably regal about her from the beginning: poise, calm, and a deep emotional intelligence. By the time of her engagement in 2003, Danish newspapers were filled with both excitement and skepticism. Could an Australian truly understand the traditions of one of Europe's oldest monarchies? Could she become a queen? The public saw designer gowns and dazzling smiles, but behind the scenes, Mary was being prepared for an entirely new life. Royal protocol lessons, Danish language immersion, and etiquette briefings dominated her schedule. Her transformation was intense, swift, and quietly isolating. She was under enormous pressure. Royal biographer Helle von Wildenrat Lovegreen shared in her best-selling book A Heart for the Kingdom. What we forget is that Mary was not just preparing for a wedding. She was preparing to become a national symbol. Friends close to Mary say that in the weeks leading up to her wedding, her anxiety was mounting. The expectations were suffocating. But then Queen Margrethe II, Denmark's longest reigning monarch and a woman known for her intellect and candor, stepped in. "You don't need to be perfect. You only need to be real." These were the words Queen Margrethe is believed to have offered Mary in private, away from the public and palace advisors. According to a senior royal court aide who later recounted the moment anonymously to Bild Bladet, the Queen wanted Mary to understand one truth. In Denmark, people don't expect royalty to be flawless, they expect them to be sincere. Danes value honesty and modesty, said cultural sociologist Søren Berg in an interview with Dr. Danish Broadcasting Corporation. Our monarchy has survived because our royals appear human. Queen Margrethe understood this deeply, and she knew Mary had to learn that early on. On May 14, 2004, the world watched as Mary Donaldson walked down the aisle at Copenhagen Cathedral. Her ivory dress, designed by Uffe Frank, was timeless. Her veil was embroidered with family heirlooms. Her tiara, a gift from Queen Margrethe, glimmered like starlight. But it was her face that told the story. There was vulnerability, excitement, and a grounded strength that seemed rooted in something deeper than royal training. Those who knew the Queen's advice saw it shining through. She didn't look like a woman trying to become someone else, one palace insider said. She looked like a woman owning who she was. Over the next 2 decades, Mary built her public image slowly, carefully, and with a deep sense of responsibility. But she never tried to hide her roots. She brought her Australian spirit, direct, compassionate, and warm, into the Danish monarchy. She often quoted Indigenous Australian proverbs at cultural events. She insisted on using both English and Danish at international summits to promote accessibility. She even wore Australian designers alongside traditional Danish jewelry at formal events, creating a symbolic bridge between her two worlds. She's built a monarchy for a new generation, said royal fashion expert Louise Teviot. And she's done it without losing herself. Proof in the people. The Danish public's love affair with Mary. In a 2023 poll conducted by Politiken, Queen Mary received an astonishing 87% approval rating, one of the highest ever recorded for a royal consort in Denmark. She is like us, but stronger, one Danish voter commented. She knows how to smile in the rain. It was Mary's authenticity, planted in her soul by Queen Margrethe's timeless advice, that endeared her to the people. Queen Mary didn't just adopt her role with dignity, she gave it purpose. In 2007, she founded the Mary Foundation, aimed at combating domestic violence, bullying, and social isolation. At the foundation's 10-year anniversary, Mary delivered a speech that brought tears to the audience. We all want to belong. We all want to be seen. I was given the chance to be seen, not just as a princess, but as a person. And now I want to give that back. Mary has also opened up about the challenges of royal motherhood. Raising 4 children, Prince Christian, Princess Isabella, and twins Vincent and Josephine, under the gaze of the world hasn't been easy. But she's embraced it with realism. In a rare interview with Alt for Damern, she admitted, I've made parenting mistakes. I've had days when I doubted myself completely. But I always remember what the Queen told me. I don't have to be perfect. That honesty resonated with young mothers across Denmark, making Mary more relatable than ever. On January 14, 2024, Queen Margrethe II shocked the world by abdicating the throne in favor of her son. Mary, now Queen Consort, stood beside Frederik at his accession ceremony, wearing the same tiara she wore on her wedding day. As the national anthem played, and the crowd outside Christiansborg Palace erupted in cheers, many viewers noticed tears in Mary's eyes. She wasn't crying because of fear, said royal commentator John Clausen. She was crying because she knew she had become what she once doubted she could be. Whether speaking at the United Nations, comforting victims of gender violence, or simply cycling through Copenhagen without security, Mary has become the face of a modern monarchy, accessible, authentic, and emotionally intelligent. She doesn't lead from above, said gender studies professor Ida Mahler. She leads from beside, and that's revolutionary for royalty. Now, 2 decades after receiving that quiet piece of advice, Queen Mary lives by it daily. In interviews, she often speaks about the privilege of being seen as human. Her speeches are often unscripted. Her fashion choices reflect both elegance and empathy. Her reign is built not on grandeur, but on grace. And most importantly, she remains grounded in who she is. As Queen Mary continues her journey alongside King Frederik X, one thing is clear, she was never trying to be perfect. She was always trying to be real. And in doing so, she became the kind of queen Denmark didn't know it needed. The queen who once walked uncertainly into the royal spotlight now walks boldly in her own truth. And it all began with a single sentence from a wise monarch who knew the future was not about diamonds, but about depth. In a world of curated images and polished personas, does sincerity still matter more than perfection? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, and subscribe for more royal journeys that go beyond the crown, straight to the soul. Let me know if you'd like a version focused on King Frederik X's reflections or public perception of their 21-year royal journey.